And now the decisive tests have been completed. We are talking about the test of the Oreshnik cruise missile with a nuclear propulsion system.
Even more useless than Oreshnik, Vladimir Putin tried to frighten Donald Trump with his new missile and somehow managed to embarrass himself even more than last time. Why is the West laughing at Russia's Burevestnik missile?
They know we have a nuclear submarine, the greatest in the world, right off their shore. They're not playing games with us. We're not playing games with them either.
Moscow is under threat again. Machine gunners spotted around the Kremlin and explosions recorded in several nearby districts. Will Moscow be left in the dark in winter?
In strict accordance with the schedule.
But this is a cornerstone issue. In the context of Russia's budget deficit, war is an extremely costly business. They are deliberately and systematically squeezing this money out of our country.
War is an extremely expensive business. Suddenly, Russian TV is noticing economic problems. Who knew?
There's just no money right now.
Meanwhile, Russian occupiers in Belgorod region are getting flooded after Ukraine breached a huge reservoir dam. Will the United Nations express its deep concern or send some humanitarian aid to Russian terrorists? We'll talk about these and other urgent Russian headlines right now. Please like, comment and subscribe so the truth about what's actually happening in Russia gets out. I'm Arsen Cymbaluk and let's get started.
We are talking about the test of the Oreshnik unlimited range cruise missile with a nuclear power unit. We will need to determine what it actually is and which weapon class this new system belongs to. It's necessary to identify possible modes of employment and begin preparing the infrastructure for basing and deploying this weapon.
That's how the Kremlin's maniac-in-chief, Vladimir Putin, politely addresses Donald Trump. Don't bother us while we loot and murder, or we'll lob a missile at you.
We'll blow the whole world to smithereens.
Wait, but what happened to the Oreshnik missile that Putin has been scaring the entire collective West with all year round?
Our missile troops have nicknamed this system Oreshnik. The development of medium and short-range missiles is being carried out by us as a countermeasure to US plans to produce and deploy medium and short-range missiles in Europe and the Asia-Pacific region.
Why wasn't it launched anywhere? The West has crossed so many red lines since then. You'd think they'd deserve a show if you listen to Putin.
Is this the first time they've deceived us?
You know, I'd say that being this crude and brazen, probably yes, it's the first time.
Oh wait, maybe Oreshnik was just a fiction like half the grand threats and promises under Putin. Aircrafts that catched the fire on runways and other technological miracles that never left the PowerPoint. And of course, cars even Putin himself couldn't start. So, where did Oreshnik go? Mystery. But what really tickled military commentators worldwide was Putin's new treasure. Namely, the Burevestnik missile.
The tactical and technical characteristics of the Burevestnik allow it to be used with guaranteed accuracy against heavily protected targets at any range.
Trump immediately made it clear to Putin exactly where he could stick his new missile.
They know we have a nuclear submarine, the greatest in the world, right off their shore. So, I mean, it doesn't have to go 8,000 miles. And they're not playing games with us. We're not playing games with them either.
But who's really amused after Putin's bragging? The US military. Putin and his propagandists sing in chorus about the missile's ability to cruise above ground for a very long time, or in some tellings, forever. Naturally, they didn't show the proof, presumably because the tests go exactly like most other Russian missile tests. But suppose for a second the Kremlin actually told the truth, that the Burevestnik's unique nuclear power plant really works, giving the missile indefinite flight time. Then a layperson might ask, why does such a thing need to loiter over the Earth for weeks or even months? The Kremlin says it's to evade Western air defense systems. But here's the snag.
How many thousand kilometers?
14,000.
14,000 kilometers. And how long was the missile in the air?
About 15 hours.
The occupiers tried to boast, but they talked themselves into a corner. From their own words, this wondrous speed averages about 933 kilometers per hour. That means any even outdated fighter jet can intercept it easily. Patriot systems? Please, it's basically an ordinary cruise missile with an extended range. In modern warfare, you'd only fire such a toy at a Western opponent en masse, dozens, better yet hundreds, so that one or two might get through. But can Russia actually produce hundreds of nuclear-powered missiles every year? Once again, Trump beat them to the answer.
President Putin basically said today that Russia is immune from U.S. sanctions.
I'm glad he feels that way. That's good. I'll let you know about it in 6 months from now, okay? Let's see how it all works out.
Most likely, under current sanctions next year, Russia won't even be able to build its ordinary missiles in the numbers needed to maintain long-range terror. What about nuclear-powered ones? Laughable. After Putin and Gerasimov's boasts, hysteria rolled through the Pentagon. The American military reportedly had its first ever mass laughter event. Not laughing, the Russian reservists, or rather what remains of them after the mass mobilization in Russia. They are now to be thrown into defending critical objects.
The threat of strikes on critical infrastructure and residential areas has increased. To enhance the protection of life support facilities and other important sites vital to the well-being of citizens, a decision has been made to involve the most trained and patriotically minded citizens in carrying out measures to safeguard civilian facilities deep within Russia.
What does the Kremlin call a critical object? Apart from the suitcase where they collect Putin's waste, of course. First on the list, 4 houses on Shkolna Street in the village of Kucherev Yar, Donetsk region. For those, Putin and his generals apparently are prepared to throw in 3 or 4 brigades, up to 20,000 Russians. Same for a well in nearby Sofiyivka and a pigsty in Kutuzivka village. These are the critical assets for Vladimir Putin. Apparently, Russian reservists will be expected to give their lives for this, or at least their arms and legs. What's left might be sent back home to shield Russian skies from Ukrainian drones and missiles.
That is genius!
According to the plan.
Military experts don't get the logic of this. Economists do. Now you can get more expendable troops for the battlefield that you don't have to pay for signing the contract because they are already the reservists.
Free of charge, that is, for nothing.
By the way, Moscow and the Moscow region have started getting Ukrainian missiles and drones again after a long, quiet spell. That's interesting because the Nazis' capital had been considered the best protected area in terms of air defense for the past 2 years. Now, the area around the Kremlin is crawling with machine gun teams. Outside Moscow, an oil depot is on fire. It's delightful because the Moscovites barely noticed the country waging a war of conquest. For 2 years, the rest of the country had shortages, but the capital didn't. Now, the capital will share the hardships of war and occupation.
In fact, we haven't even properly started yet.
Meanwhile, Belgorod Oblast reports the destruction of a local reservoir dam. Russian propagandists claim that HIMARS hit it. Day 1346 of taking Kyiv in 3 days. Now water is flooding everything near Belgorod, including positions manned by Putin's NATO destroyers. Reports say as many as 4 brigades' positions are affected. Personally, I have zero doubt that Putin's chorus of psychopaths, led by himself and Lavrov, will howl about an outrageous breach of the international law, because dams are protected by the international law.
Russians are being oppressed.
But let me remind you, the international law didn't stop Russian occupiers from destroying the gigantic Kakhovka Dam and inflicting irreversible damage on the whole Black Sea ecosystem back in 2023. Neither the UN Secretary General, nor then US President Joe Biden, nor the world's loudest climate activist Greta Thunberg did anything to stop Putin then.
How dare you!
Their weak, bleating, plus absolute inaction then encouraged Putin to new terror attacks that continue today. Back then, the West politely whipped itself with the norms of international law, so any appeal to those norms now would look at best absurd. But the Kremlin is shameless. It's filing complaints to the UN while simultaneously threatening to blow up a Kyiv dam. Propagandists even threatened to annihilate Kyiv, Kharkiv, Odessa and other Ukrainian cities.
Now we've finally started destroying everything to hell. There will be no life in Kharkiv, nor in Poltava, nor in Mykolaiv, nor in Odessa. Those cities won't exist, and neither will Kyiv.
Of course, we've been hearing this for 4 years now, so nothing new there. What is truly new on Russian TV, though, is the whining about American sanctions.
Regarding the drop in profits from oil sales, this is a cornerstone issue. In the context of Russia's budget deficit, war is an extremely expensive business. They are deliberately and systematically squeezing this money out of our country.
Stop. Wait. Ain't Western sanctions funny? Don't you laugh at them anymore? And ain't the sanctions fortify the Russian economy? Won't Lukoil and Rosneft become stronger in glorious international isolation?
Unfortunately, we've been deceived once again.
The convulsions of Russian propaganda show that Trump's sanctions genuinely scared the Kremlin. There are reasons to think that Kremlin lacks funding for several more years of war under these conditions. At the same time, please don't forget, the most effective sanctions are those the Ukrainian Armed Forces impose on the terrorist state. I ask you to donate to Ukrainian defenders whenever you can. Support my native 122nd Brigade through PayPal in the description to this video or via this QR code. Also, please like and comment if you want more videos like this. Thank you. See you in the next news bulletin about Russia. Take care and support Ukraine. Slava Ukraini!